The Discovery. The silence stretched across the vast chamber of the Galactic Council, broken only by the soft hum of translation matrices processing languages from 12 different species. Ambassador Zeftar of the Zalani Collective adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus and regarded the holographic display with barely concealed disgust. "Another primitive species requesting contact," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had dismissed 1,000 such requests. "This time from the Outer Spiral Arm, Sector 7741. They call themselves humans." The assembled representatives barely glanced up from their data tablets. First contact requests were as common as stellar dust in this part of the galaxy, and most came from species barely past the discovery of fire. The Galactic Council had protocols for such things, established over millennia of experience with emerging civilizations. Council Secretary Vorth, a spider-like creature with 8 arms constantly manipulating holographic interfaces, brought up the preliminary scans. Their homeworld designation is Earth, located in what they call the Sol system. Chemical propulsion, primitive nuclear technology, basic electromagnetic communication arrays. Standard classification, pre-contact civilization, level 2.7. A few council members chuckled at the rating. Level 2.7 was generous for most species at humanity's technological stage. The Kalthani representative, whose people resembled upright mantises with silver exoskeletons, clicked her mandibles in amusement. "Let me guess," she said, her translated voice dripping with condescension. "They've detected our scout probes and think they're ready to join the galactic community. How delightfully naive." Ambassador Zeftar manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up Earth's electromagnetic spectrum emissions. The planet blazed with radio signals, television broadcasts, and digital communications. "They're quite chatty for primitives. Look at this chaos of unregulated transmissions, no proper frequency allocation, no understanding of subspace protocols. They're polluting their entire electromagnetic spectrum." The council chamber filled with the alien equivalent of laughter. The Trilaxian delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a magnetic field suit, pulsed with amusement. "Remember the last species that thought radio waves made them galactic citizens? What were they called? The Kryn? They were still throwing rocks at each other when they sent their first Hello Universe message." But Dr. Yinara, the lone Altarian representative, leaned forward with interest. Her people were one of the few species in the council known for their scientific curiosity rather than political dominance. "These humans show remarkable progress for their age. According to our dating methods, they achieved powered flight only 68 standard years ago. Yet they've already established orbital platforms and sent probes beyond their primary system." "Impressive for children playing with toys," Zeftar dismissed, "but hardly relevant to our concerns. We have the Dominion War brewing in the Beta Quadrant, trade disputes with the merchant guilds, and the ongoing terraforming crisis on Kepler Prime. We don't have time to babysit another primitive species through their growing pains." Secretary Vorth's multiple arms danced across the control interfaces. "Standard protocol dictates we monitor them for another 1,000 standard years. If they survive their own development without destroying themselves, we can consider preliminary contact. Current projections give them a 12% survival probability." "Generous odds," commented the Kalthani representative. "Most species at their level either blow themselves up with nuclear weapons or poison their biosphere within a century. These humans show classic signs of both tendencies." The holographic display shifted to show Earth's environmental data. Rising temperatures, oceanic acidification, massive deforestation, and industrial pollution painted a grim picture. Overlaid were humanity's military capabilities. Thousands of nuclear warheads, chemical weapons, and biological research that teetered on the edge of weaponization. "Typical self-destructive pattern," Zeftar noted with practiced indifference. They've discovered the power to reshape matter at the molecular level, but they use it to create weapons instead of solutions. Mark my words, they'll be extinct within 2 centuries. Dr. Yonara studied the data more carefully. Her scientific background made her notice details others missed. Their energy output curves are unusual. Most species plateau at this stage of development, but humans show exponential growth patterns. And look at their information technology advancement. They've gone from mechanical computation to quantum processing in less than a century. Meaningless without wisdom, the Trilaxian delegate pulsed dismissively. Power without understanding leads only to destruction. The galaxy is littered with the radioactive remains of species who thought technical advancement alone qualified them for the stars. The debate continued for several more minutes, but the outcome was predetermined. The Galactic Council had faced this decision countless times before, and their response followed established patterns. Why waste resources on a species that probably wouldn't survive its own adolescence? Motion to classify the human species as under observation and defer any contact for the standard monitoring period, Zeftar announced formally. Seconded, came the immediate response from the Kalthani representative. The vote was swift and decisive. 11 members voted to ignore humanity's signals and maintain the monitoring protocol. Only Dr. Yonara abstained, her scientific curiosity warring with political pragmatism. The motion carries, Secretary Vorth recorded officially. Human contact requests will be logged and filed. No response shall be transmitted. Automated monitoring systems will track their development according to standard protocols. As the Council moved on to their next agenda item, none of them paid attention to the detailed analysis scrolling across Dr. Yonara's personal display. Hidden within humanity's chaotic radio transmissions, she had detected something troubling. The humans weren't just broadcasting randomly into space, they were listening, learning, and adapting with frightening speed. Their radio telescopes were becoming more sophisticated each year. Their space-based observation platforms were detecting artificial structures throughout the galaxy. And most concerning of all, they were beginning to understand that the signals coming from the stars weren't natural phenomena. The humans knew they weren't alone. 3 months after the Council's dismissive vote, monitoring station Kepler 438b, positioned at the edge of human space, detected an unusual energy signature. The automated systems flagged it for review, but the data was buried in routine reports that wouldn't be examined for months. If anyone had been paying attention, they would have seen humanity's first successful test of an electromagnetic mass driver. The primitive railgun had accelerated a small projectile to 0.3% the speed of light, creating an energy signature that registered on instruments across 3 star systems. But the Galactic Council had more important matters to consider than monitoring primitive species. They had wars to manage, trade routes to secure, and political alliances to maintain. What could a species barely capable of interplanetary travel possibly do that would concern the mighty powers of the galaxy? Dr. Yonara filed her concerns in a private research database and continued her observations. Something about the humans troubled her in ways she couldn't articulate. They possessed a combination of curiosity, adaptability, and determination that seemed unusual among emerging species. More disturbing was their approach to problem-solving. While most species developed along predictable technological paths, humans seemed to excel at finding unconventional solutions. Their primitive chemical rockets had evolved into fusion drives in mere decades. Their early computers had transformed into quantum networks with processing power that rivals some council member species. And they never stopped asking questions. Every day, more human radio signals reached space. Not just random broadcasts anymore, but deliberate attempts to communicate with anyone who might be listening. Mathematical sequences, universal constants, artistic expressions, and increasingly sophisticated messages that showed genuine understanding of interstellar communication principles. The humans weren't just hoping someone would hear them, they were actively trying to prove they were worthy of contact. But the Galactic Council had made its decision. The humans would remain under observation, their signals unanswered, their questions ignored. After all, what harm could a primitive species possibly represent to civilizations that had mastered faster-than-light travel, controlled entire star systems, and wielded the fundamental forces of the universe? As Dr. Yinara studied the latest human transmissions, she noticed their tone had begun to change. The early messages had been hopeful, eager, almost childlike in their enthusiasm. The awakening. 27 years had passed since the Galactic Council's dismissive vote, and Earth had changed in ways that would have stunned even Dr. Yinara's optimistic projections. The blue-green world that had once seemed destined for environmental collapse now gleamed with the metallic structures of orbital habitats and industrial platforms. Commander Sarah Chen floated in the observation deck of humanity's newest achievement, the orbital shipyard designated Forge Station Alpha. Through the reinforced, transparent aluminum viewport, she watched the construction of mankind's first true interstellar vessel. The ship bristled with technologies that would have been fantasy mere decades ago, but humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to turn fantasy into reality through sheer stubborn determination. "Ma'am, we're receiving another transmission from the Deep Space Monitoring Array," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. His voice carried the weight of frustration that had become common among the crew. "Same as always. Artificial signals from multiple star systems, clearly indicating advanced civilizations, but no response to any of our attempts at contact." Sarah nodded grimly. Humanity had long since moved past naive optimism about their place in the universe. Advanced radio telescopes, quantum sensors, and gravitational wave detectors had painted a clear picture. The galaxy teemed with intelligent life. Massive artificial structures orbited distant stars. Regulated electromagnetic signatures indicated sophisticated communication networks spanning hundreds of light years. Energy patterns consistent with faster-than-light travel appeared regularly in sensor data. The universe was full of neighbors who refused to acknowledge humanity's existence. "Any updates from the Science Council regarding the Breakthrough Project?" Sarah asked, referring to humanity's most ambitious attempt to force galactic recognition. Dr. Nakamura reports the primary railgun array is operational. The magnetic acceleration system can now achieve 15% light speed with solid projectiles. More importantly, the quantum resonance warheads are ready for field testing. Sarah allowed herself a tight smile. Humanity had learned harsh lessons about galactic politics through decades of being ignored. If peaceful communication failed, perhaps a demonstration of capability would succeed. The Breakthrough Project represented mankind's declaration that they would no longer be dismissed as primitive children. The railgun arrays constructed throughout the solar system were marvels of human engineering. Each installation stretched for hundreds of kilometers, using superconducting magnetic fields to accelerate specially designed projectiles to relativistic speeds. But the real breakthrough had come from studying the very signals that revealed galactic civilization's existence. Human scientists had reverse-engineered subspace communication protocols from intercepted alien transmissions. They couldn't fully understand the technology, but they had learned to detect and disrupt it. The quantum resonance warheads represented humanity's first attempt at faster-than-light weaponry, designed to create subspace interference patterns that would cripple alien communication networks. "Commander, incoming priority transmission from Mars Command," announced the communications officer. "Admiral Rodriguez wants immediate conference." The holographic display activated, revealing the weathered face of Admiral Maria Rodriguez, Supreme Commander of humanity's unified military forces. Behind her, the red landscape of Mars was visible through the reinforced windows of the command center, dotted with the gleaming domes of humanity's second major planetary colony. "Sarah, We've confirmed intelligence reports from the Outer System Monitoring Network. 3 alien vessels have been detected approaching the edge of our solar system. They're not hiding their approach, which suggests they're not hostile, but they're also not responding to any communication attempts. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. After decades of silence, someone was finally coming to visit humanity. But the timing seemed suspiciously convenient, arriving just as mankind had achieved interstellar capabilities and developed weapons that could threaten galactic communication infrastructure. Analysis suggests they're scouts or diplomatic vessels, Admiral Rodriguez continued. Long-range sensors indicate advanced technology but relatively small ships, perhaps 50 meters in length each. They'll reach the outer planetary orbits within 18 hours. Do we know who they represent? Sarah asked, though she suspected the answer. Unknown. The ships don't match any of the energy signatures we've cataloged from intercepted transmissions. Could be a first contact delegation, or it could be someone coming to investigate why our deep space transmissions suddenly stopped 3 months ago. Sarah understood the reference. Humanity had ceased all broadcasts into space 12 weeks ago, instead focusing their communication efforts on intercepting and analyzing alien signals. To any civilization monitoring human development, the sudden silence might seem ominous. Orders, Admiral? Full alert status throughout the system, but no aggressive actions unless they initiate hostilities. We want to seem prepared but not threatening. This could be our first real chance at establishing contact with galactic civilization. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts and the magnificent view of humanity's growing industrial presence in space. Massive factories orbited Earth, processing asteroids into raw materials for an expanding interplanetary infrastructure. Fusion reactors provided unlimited clean energy. Generation ships designed for century-long voyages to nearby star systems sat in final construction phases. Humanity had spent 27 years preparing for this moment, but Sarah wondered if they were truly ready for what it might bring. 18 hours later, the alien vessels reached the orbit of Saturn and finally broke their silence. The message that arrived at human monitoring stations was transmitted in perfect English, German, Mandarin, Spanish, and Arabic simultaneously, indicating extensive study of human communication patterns. Attention human civilization. This is Ambassador Zeftar of the Galactic Council, representing the united species of this galactic region. We have come to investigate irregular subspace disturbances originating from your solar system and to assess potential security concerns regarding your recent technological developments. Sarah watched the recording from Forge Station Alpha's command center, surrounded by humanity's finest military and scientific minds. The aliens' appearance was both fascinating and unsettling. The crystalline breathing apparatus and blue-gray skin suggested a non-oxygen-breathing species, while the elaborate clothing and formal bearing indicated advanced civilization and diplomatic protocols. We have monitored your species' development for the past 37 standard years. Your recent cessation of electromagnetic broadcasts and the construction of what appear to be mass acceleration weapons has prompted this investigation. We require immediate response regarding your intentions with these weapons systems. Dr. Elizabeth Nakamura, lead scientist on the Breakthrough Project, leaned forward intently. They've been watching us for 37 years? That means they've seen everything. Our wars, our environmental recovery, our technological advancement. They know exactly what we're capable of. More importantly, added General Morrison, they're concerned about our railgun arrays. That suggests their technology isn't as advanced as we might have assumed. If they were truly beyond our capability to threaten, why would they care about kinetic weapons? Sarah studied the alien ambassador's expression carefully. Despite the obvious differences in physiology, certain emotions seemed universal. She detected what looked like condescension mixed with genuine concern. This wasn't a peaceful first contact delegation. It was an inspection by worried neighbors. "Draft our response," she ordered. "Full disclosure about our defensive capabilities, but make it clear that we've developed these systems in response to being ignored for decades. If they wanted peaceful contact, they should have answered our messages years ago." The reply humanity transmitted marked the end of mankind's patient attempts at peaceful integration with galactic society. Ambassador Chen's words were carefully chosen, but their meaning was unmistakable. Ambassador Zeftar, humanity welcomes this long-overdue contact with galactic civilization. We have spent 43 years attempting peaceful communication with our neighbors, broadcasting mathematical proofs, cultural expressions, and formal contact requests. The silence we received in response taught us that the galaxy operates under different rules than we had hoped. Our defensive systems were developed as insurance against the possibility that our neighbors view emerging civilizations as threats rather than opportunities. We have no aggressive intentions toward any galactic power, but we will not be dismissed or ignored any longer. Humanity is ready to take its place among the stars, with or without official permission. The message was transmitted on multiple frequencies and in several alien languages that human cryptographers had deciphered from intercepted communications. There would be no possibility of misunderstanding. Ambassador Zeftar's response arrived within hours, and the tone had shifted noticeably. "Human representatives, your recent technological advancement has exceeded all projections for species at your development level. The Galactic Council requires immediate inspection of your weapons capabilities to assess potential threat levels to established interstellar communities. You will prepare for boarding and examination of your military installations." Sarah exchanged glances with her senior staff. The alien's demand carried the unmistakable tone of authority accustomed to automatic compliance. But humanity had spent the response. The Galactic Council chamber had never witnessed such chaos. Representatives from 12 species shouted simultaneously in their native languages, while translation matrices struggled to process the overlapping arguments. At the center of the maelstrom, Ambassador Zeftar stood rigidly, his crystalline breathing apparatus cycling rapidly with what humans would recognize as barely controlled anger. "Order! Order!" Secretary Vorth's 8 arms slammed against the council podium, creating a thunderous crash that finally silenced the assembly. "We will address this crisis systematically, not like children arguing over territory disputes." The holographic display dominated the chamber, showing real-time tactical data from the human solar system. What they revealed defied every assumption the Council had made about primitive species development. Earth's defensive grid consisted of 17 major railgun installations, each capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. More concerning were the energy signatures indicating quantum resonance weapons that could disrupt subspace communications across interstellar distances. "Explain to me," demanded the Kalthani representative, her silver exoskeleton gleaming with agitation, "how a species we classified as level 2.7 has developed weapons capable of threatening Council vessels." Dr. Yanara, who had spent decades monitoring human development, felt a mixture of vindication and dread. "I submitted 17 reports over the past 20 years documenting their accelerated advancement. Their technological growth curve was unprecedented among emerging species. We chose to ignore the data." "Ignored?" The Trilaxian delegate's energy field pulsed with indignation. "We followed standard protocols established over millennia. No emerging species has ever posed a legitimate threat to established galactic powers." Ambassador Zeftar manipulated the holographic controls, highlighting the tactical analysis of humanity's capabilities. Threat assessment indicates their kinetic weapons could damage or destroy Council vessels at ranges up to 30 astronomical units. The quantum resonance devices could theoretically disrupt subspace communications throughout this entire sector. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had developed the capability to strike back. Recommendations? Secretary Vorth inquired with forced calm. Military intervention, responded the Kalthani representative immediately. Deploy the Third Fleet to neutralize their weapons platforms before they can complete additional installations. We cannot allow primitives to threaten established order. Agreed, pulsed the Trilaxian delegate. This situation represents an unprecedented threat to galactic stability. If other emerging species learn that advanced weapons can force recognition from the Council, we'll face chaos throughout the outer systems. But Dr. Yanara had been studying the tactical data more carefully. Her scientific training allowed her to see details that the militarily minded representatives missed. Council members, I must point out several concerning factors. Human defensive positions are strategically distributed throughout their system with overlapping fields of fire. Their weapons platforms are hardened against electromagnetic pulse attacks and positioned to provide mutual defense coverage. She highlighted specific installations on the display. More significantly, they've demonstrated remarkable efficiency in construction and deployment. These installations appeared over the past 3 years, suggesting industrial capacity far exceeding our projections. If they can build 17 major weapons platforms in such a short time frame, how many more might they construct given additional months or years? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The Council had always maintained galactic order through overwhelming technological superiority. The idea that a primitive species could challenge that supremacy was almost incomprehensible. There's another factor, Dr. Yanara continued reluctantly. Our intelligence analysis suggests they've reverse-engineered some of our communication protocols. The quantum resonance weapons aren't just disruptive devices. They're designed specifically to target subspace communication networks. Ambassador Zeftar's breathing apparatus cycled even faster. You're suggesting they've been studying our transmissions and developing countermeasures? I'm stating it as fact. Human technology shows clear evidence of reverse engineering based on intercepted galactic communications. They've been learning from us while we ignored them. The strategic implications were staggering. The humans hadn't just developed advanced weapons. They had specifically designed them to counter galactic technology advantages. It suggested a level of strategic thinking and long-term planning that the Council had never encountered in an emerging species. Military assessment, demanded Secretary Vorth. General Kraz, the Dominion military liaison, accessed the tactical database. His reptilian features remained impassive as he processed the data, but his conclusions were sobering. Direct military engagement would likely succeed, but at significant cost. Human defensive positions are well designed, and their weapons represent genuine threats to our vessels. Estimated casualties for a successful assault range from 12 to 47 ships, depending on their actual capabilities. The numbers sent shockwaves through the assembly. In 3,000 years of galactic expansion, no emerging species had ever forced such casualty projections. Moreover, General Kraz continued, human technological advancement suggests they may have additional capabilities not yet detected. Their industrial growth indicates potential for rapid military expansion. A failed first assault could lead to significantly stronger human defenses. Then we use overwhelming force, insisted the Kalthani representative. Deploy the entire Second Fleet. Crush them before they can complete additional preparations. And prove to every emerging species in the galaxy that Council peace is maintained through military conquest? Dr. Yanara challenged. How many other primitive worlds will decide they need defensive weapons when they see us destroying human civilization for the crime of defending themselves? The debate raged for hours, but practical considerations gradually shaped the discussion. Humanity had achieved something no previous emerging species had managed. They had made the cost of conquest too high to ignore. Perhaps, suggested the Trilaxian delegate reluctantly, Negotiation might prove more efficient than military action. Ambassador Zeftar's response dripped with disdain. Negotiate with primitives who refuse council authority. The precedent would undermine our entire governmental structure. The precedent, Dr. Yanara pointed out firmly, was established when we ignored their peaceful contact attempts for 43 years. They learned that the galaxy respects strength more than diplomacy. We taught them that lesson. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone had expected. 7 members favored immediate military intervention, while 5 supported diplomatic engagement. The decision fell to Secretary Vorth as tiebreaker, and his choice would reshape galactic politics forever. Motion carries for limited diplomatic engagement, he announced reluctantly. Ambassador Zeftar will return to the human system with authorization to discuss potential integration protocols. But even as the Council voted, monitoring stations throughout the sector detected troubling energy signatures. The humans weren't waiting passively for galactic decisions. Additional railgun installations had begun construction, and new ships were launching from their orbital facilities. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Zeftar faced humanity's representatives aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony, positioned at the edge of human space. The meeting location itself sent a clear message. The humans would negotiate, but only in neutral territory. Admiral Rodriguez led the human delegation, her weathered features betraying decades of military experience. Beside her sat Dr. Chen, now promoted to Director of Interstellar Relations, and General Morrison, whose presence emphasized humanity's readiness for any outcome. Ambassador, Admiral Rodriguez began without preamble, humanity appreciates this opportunity for dialogue. However, we want to clarify our position from the start. We're not seeking permission to exist or develop our defensive capabilities. We're here to establish the terms under which humanity will join galactic civilization. Zeftar's breathing apparatus cycled with surprise. Emerging species typically begged for council recognition, not demanded terms for participation. The Galactic Council has maintained interstellar peace for over 3,000 years, he responded stiffly. Integration protocols exist to ensure new species don't destabilize established order. Protocols, Dr. Chen interjected, that apparently include ignoring peaceful contact attempts for decades while monitoring emerging species like laboratory subjects. Humanity has reviewed those protocols and finds them unacceptable. The human delegation presented their counterproposal with the confidence of equals rather than supplicants. They demanded recognition as a sovereign interstellar power, the right to maintain defensive installations, and participation in galactic trade networks. In exchange, they offered technological innovations, cultural exchanges, and cooperation in maintaining regional stability. What they didn't offer was submission to council authority. The negotiations stretched for days, with each side testing the other's resolve. But the underlying reality couldn't be ignored. Humanity had proven they could defend themselves, and the cost of forcing submission would be higher than the Council was willing to pay. The final agreement signed aboard Harmony 3 weeks later established precedents that would echo throughout galactic history. Humanity became the first emerging species to join galactic civilization through negotiated treaty rather than council decree. More significantly, they retained the right to maintain independent defensive forces and refused to submit to council oversight of their internal affairs. As news of the agreement spread through subspace networks, reaction rippled across the galaxy. Dozens of emerging species that had spent decades waiting for council recognition suddenly began accelerating their military development programs. The age of automatic council supremacy was ending, replaced by a new era where respect had to be earned rather than demanded. Dr. Yanara, attending the signing ceremony as the Council's scientific observer, watched Admiral Rodriguez affix humanity's seal to the historic document. Despite her earlier concerns about humanity's rapid advancement, she felt a peculiar sense of pride in their achievement. "Remarkable," she murmured to her aide. "They accomplished in decades what most species require centuries to achieve." "What's that, Doctor?" "They learned to make the galaxy listen." Ambassador Zeftar returned to the council with a mixture of relief and apprehension. The immediate crisis had been resolved without military conflict, but the long-term implications were staggering. The humans had fundamentally altered the balance of galactic power, not through conquest or expansion, but by refusing to accept their assigned place in the cosmic hierarchy. As he prepared his final report, one thought continued to trouble him. The humans had achieved recognition through strength and determination, but their most dangerous quality wasn't their weapons or their technology. It was their absolute refusal to be ignored. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 decades learning that the galaxy's established powers viewed emerging species as subjects rather than equals. "Prepare our response," Sarah ordered, "and signal all defense platforms to assume full readiness." Humanity's reply would echo across the galaxy within days, carried by subspace communication networks that connected dozens of advanced civilizations. The message was brief, clear, and would forever change how the galaxy viewed the small blue world in the outer spiral arm. "Ambassador Zeftar, humanity respectfully declines your demand for inspection. Our defensive systems will remain under human control. If the Galactic Council wishes to establish diplomatic relations with mankind, we welcome such contact on the basis of mutual respect and recognition of sovereignty. We are no longer seeking permission to exist among the stars." The silence that followed lasted exactly 17 hours. When it ended, it would mark the beginning of humanity's true introduction to galactic politics, SM. But the newer signals carried undertones of something else: frustration, determination, and perhaps most concerning of all, a growing understanding that their messages were being deliberately ignored. The humans were starting to realize that the silence from the stars wasn't because no one was out there. It was because no one cared to answer.